Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show live on Rumble, where facts come first and where news is done right. And we begin today in Washington, where President Trump is continuing his mission to protect faith and freedom from coast to coast. Here's his remarks earlier today at the Museum of the Bible. Take a look.
America has always been a nation that believes in the power of prayer, and we will never apologize for our faith, ever, ever, never, never. We will never surrender our God-given rights. We will defend our liberties, our values, our sovereignty, and we will defend our freedom. And with the help of amazing faith communities across the land, so many are represented with us today, we will truly make this the golden age of America. That's what we're doing. We're in a golden age. We're at the very beginning of a golden age. So much progress has been made in the last 8 months. Progress like nobody's ever seen before. They're writing about it. They're actually saying it. They've never seen anything like what's happened in the last 8 months. And together we will make our country greater, stronger, more united, and more faithful than ever before.
And that message of faith and freedom ties directly into the MAGA mission to protect safety and security for law-abiding citizens of every city and town, including in the city of Chicago, where the president says that if local leaders refuse to protect our most vulnerable, then he's going to step in.
It's a very dangerous place, and we have a governor that doesn't care about crime. I guess we could solve Chicago very quickly, but we're going to make a decision as to where we go over the next day or two. When you look at what happened to D.C. in a short period of time, honestly, it's amazing.
And protecting America means also protecting our hemisphere from the drug and cartel invasion that's taken far too many American lives. Now, earlier today, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Raisin Cain landed in Puerto Rico, where Governor Jennifer Gonzalez wrote, quote, "We thank President Trump and his administration for recognizing the strategic value Puerto Rico has to the national security of the United States and the fight against drug cartels in our hemisphere, perpetuated by narco dictator Nicolas Maduro. We are proud to support America First policies that secure our borders and combat illicit activities to protect Americans and our homeland." And it's right in line with the recent rebranding of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Take a look.
You know, we won World War I, and we won World War II, not with the Department of Defense, but with a War Department.
We're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries.
We're in the business of war fighting.
And joining me now for reaction to all of this, former acting DEA Administrator Derek Waltz. Thank you so much for being on the program. Maltz, correct myself there. Thanks for being here. And we're seeing a historic effort by President Trump to stop the flow of drugs and take out those responsible for poisoning our fellow Americans. So talk about why this matters more than ever, and about the human cost of drug trafficking, because we've seen the death, the destruction from synthetic opioids like fentanyl. How has this fundamentally affected the DEA's strategy?
So thank you, Kimberly, for having me. I mean, obviously, I'm very excited now to see President Trump and this administration really holding these terrorists accountable for once, okay? The last 4 years, they were operating with impunity, and now they're being held accountable with the full extent of the United States government. So I've been calling for this to happen for many years. I was sending memes back, 6 years ago during Trump 1 to get him to designate these cartels as terrorists, and he wanted to do it, but the bureaucrats stopped him. Now we have the babies that are dying, Kimberly. You see these babies here, right? These are infants. They're not drug users. They don't have substance use disorder. They're dropping all over the country. That's why my wall is loaded with the dead kids. So they have to be held accountable. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Venezuela has been a command and control hub for narco trafficking terrorists for over 20 years. I was following that when I was the head of the Special Operations Division. Hezbollah was operating all over the Western Hemisphere, setting up joint operations with the military and high-level corrupt officials in Venezuela. They need to be held accountable. They need to feel the pain, the same pain the families are feeling all over this country. So I'm very, very excited that this government right now is forming the greatest army of good to defeat evil. And that's what the public voted for in November.
Okay, and the sheer volume of illicit funds tied to drug trafficking is, quite staggering. Can you put it into perspective? I know you've been working with victims, families, and children for a long time on this.
Yeah, so I mean, just the human devastation, but the amount of money. Remember, the cartels are doing this to maximize the profits. They were making multi-billions of dollars during the last administration, having a wide open border. They actually had, so much revenue coming in from the migrant smuggling, the human trafficking. So now they're going and sending drugs all over the world. They're taking advantage of the cocaine addiction around the world. But the reality is they make billions of dollars. They run like a Fortune 500 company. It's been that way for many years. So law enforcement alone is not good enough. Law enforcement's done a great job. We have the Homeland Security task forces now. You see what they did last week. They announced 300,000 kilograms of chemicals seized as part of Operation Hydra. Could have made almost 200,000 kilograms of meth, which is all over our country as well. So this president has made a decision to put Americans first and to stop the flow of poisonous drugs into not only America, but around the world. So it's very exciting to see the level of activity and the engagement from all the agencies. That's what's kind of new too. People aren't talking about that. People also have, Kimberly, one other thing. We forget that Nicolas Maduro exported his monsters, the TDA monsters, into our communities that were causing all of this crime in our country. And he flooded the streets of America with drugs for many years. That's why he's been indicted. That's why there's a $50 million reward on his head to come back and face justice. So I'm looking forward to the upcoming weeks and months of what's going to happen in Venezuela.
Well, and how deeply have, drug cartels, in your opinion, infiltrated our institutions, let alone our communities?
So the bottom line is, Kimberly, we've been saying this forever, that it's all about the money, right? So let me show you here real quick. I'm big with the pictures. This is $207 million in $100 denominations mostly. It was seized in 2007 in a house in Mexico City.
Wow.
This seizure was the largest in the world that I'm aware of with a drug case. And guess who it came from? Chinese chemical broker who was working in partnership like this with the Mexican cartels. So you can only imagine the amount of money that's out there. You see, this is when I was with Border 911. Tom Homan was the president, and we ran around and we educated the public on the immigration, the border issues, the fentanyl issues. But remember, we're not only talking about synthetic opioids like fentanyl. We have nitazene, etinitazene, metanitazene, protonitazene, carfentanil, xylazine coming into America that's causing necrosis of the human body, the rotten of human tissue. That's the stuff you see all over Philadelphia, for example. But guess what? The DEA's last analysis was over 30% of the fentanyl powder that they seized in America had xylazine in it. Why is China selling xylazine for $1 a kilogram when it's causing the necrosis of bodies? Because they want to destabilize and destroy this country. And they have a long-term strategic plan. So I'm glad, the president's in power now to actually, continue what he was doing before around 2019 and getting this shift in the fentanyl analogs coming directly to America. There's a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, this president inherited a very bad situation when it comes to, the security and safety of our country. So we have a long way to go.
Well, the president's taking bold action against the Maduro regime in Venezuela. Can you lay out the nexus about how cocaine and other drugs makes its way to the United States and is being used to fund terrorism against our nation?
So, Kimberly, good question. 2007, that fireball was given to me by the
Unbelievable, so good.
Commander, the General of Southcom, Admiral James Stavridis. That was his worst nightmare when narco terrorists and Islamic terrorists came together. Well, guess what? They did. During Project Cassandra, we saw Hezbollah's involvement with the cartels. They were making billions of dollars around the world. They were helping fund the Iranian weapon of mass destruction project. They were helping to fund Hezbollah's efforts in Syria. So the terrorists have realized that drug trafficking and crime, human trafficking, gun trafficking, is providing, multi-millions, if not billions, in revenue to support their radical initiatives. So the Houthis, as they're shooting missiles, a lot of that money was coming from the United States, from illegal activity. So it's very connected. The drugs flow from Venezuela. They use the military, the director of military intelligence. We arrested him. He's convicted now. They bring this stuff into Mexico. They use go-fast boats. They use submarines. They use tractor trailers. They use cars. They use these very sophisticated traps. They use tunnels. Comes into America. They have command and control hubs in every major city in America. The drugs come in. The drugs go to the street. The gangs are distributing the drugs in a lot of communities. Then they're collecting millions and millions of dollars. But guess who's doing the money laundering now, Kimberly, for the Mexican cartels? The Chinese criminals. They're coming here. They're getting visas, or they were getting visas. They come in. They pick up suitcases of cash. They get on their phones. They move the money in the Chinese banking apps. And they move money, and the cartels get paid immediately down in Mexico. So they're beating us bad. They're working with these very, very dangerous terror cartels in Mexico. So I'm looking forward to continued operations against this devastating force against our country.